Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in today. I have the Motormax M3. This is the E92 version, and we're going to go through some of the features, details, and some of my overall opinions on this particular model. So, starting off with just the overall spec of this car, it's finished in this really nice kind of pearlescent gray paint. As you can see, there's a bit of metallic flake in there, and I think the paint does look really good on this car. It's got a kind of a tan interior finished on silver wheels. But yeah, this is a pretty cool model. It's not the best quality, and I think I picked it up for about $50 or so, like 3 or 4 years ago, which is pretty expensive, I think. These Motormax models are probably not worth it. I would say you're probably better off, well served, just maybe saving up for a Kyosho version or getting like a different model made by Solido. But yeah, let's start off with the front of the car and I'll show you some of the features and details there. So this also is a fully opening model, so I'll go through some of those features as we go along the car. So starting off with the front, obviously the nice big M Sport styled front bumper, big air intakes right here down in the front, but they are finished just with like plastic behind them. It's not really detailed very well. It's kind of just a smooth plastic with like little mesh designs in them, and they don't look very good, to be honest. There's also a big license plate right up here, which I'm not too much of a fan of. The headlights themselves, I think these faded over time. These were probably a lot more clear when they came out, as well as the windshield. All the glass on this car is kind of turned into like a grayish color, so it doesn't look very good, to be honest. But yeah, so you can see the headlights, the distinctive kind of four eyes that the front of the BMW has, but not really too much detail to make out behind there. But you can kind of make out the daytime running lights that this model has. I think they did a pretty decent job on the front grills themselves. You can actually see through them, which is always a nice feature. And then they have the chrome surrounding the kidney grills, so not too bad. The emblem up front, though, as you can see, it's done pretty decently, but I think it's just like a sticker stuck on there. But there is like a little indent and it kind of bulges up, but it looks okay. The hood itself does have the kind of, kind of indent for the engine, as you can see on the top, and then there's two little side vents on each side for kind of cooling purposes. I will note that the front bumper does have a bit of a panel gap here. As you can see, it's pretty noticeable, and it actually, I feel like it sticks out a little bit, interestingly, and there is kind of a little kind of a chip on the side of the fender. I'm not too sure if that's factory or if that was just because this was a used model when I picked it up, but obviously the other side, the fender gap, is pretty big, connecting to the front bumper, so that's kind of a knock in kind of points for this model. But the hood does open, which is nice. Let me just try to pop it open, and it doesn't really stay up, as you can see. It needs a little bit of assistance. So I'll show you some of the details. Obviously the big V8 engine that these cars has is under there as well, but the features of it aren't really good. They stuck this badge on the front of the kind of the cover of the engine, and it looks really cheap. It's just really funny looking, but the hoses and everything else in there, I mean, they look fair enough, but as you can see, this is kind of a cheaply made engine bay. No details up there where the air filters would go for the cabin, but yeah, just kind of a pretty mid-tier engine bay, but they do have a little bit of details on the hood of it, or the underneath the hood as well, so kind of nice, but not too great. This is mostly like a Maisto level quality engine bay. So I'll go ahead and close that back down, and we'll move to the side of the model. So as you can see, kind of more of that fender gap right there to the front bumper, so it doesn't look great. But the wheels I do like on this model. They're multi-spoke wheels with the BMW logo sitting in the center, and it looks like just black brake calipers and then drilled rotors, which are not drilled all the way through, as you can see. So just kind of mid-tier level wheels. They don't look great, but the wheel design I'm a fan of, so I'm glad they put those on this car. Coming down, we have the signature kind of M Sport styled side vent with the little chrome piece right here, and it looks pretty good. I think there should be like an M3 badge somewhere on here, but there's not that I can make out, so kind of unfortunate. And it is a little bit crooked and it sticks out a bit, so it's not great, but they did try a little bit. Coming down to the side skirt right here, as you can see, it's got the M Sport styled side skirts, which come out pretty nicely and I think are designed pretty fairly to represent the actual model or the actual real car. But the mirrors themselves, I would say, look pretty bad. They kind of just stuck these on there. As you can see, they kind of pop out. And I'm not sure if that was re-glued on there because the other side does look a little bit better. But just it looks just really bulky and stuff, especially with this little cutout. It's kind of just connected. It's not actually separated. So the mirror detail's not too great. This is, you know, pretty standard though for Motormax. And it looks like we only have one windshield wiper. I'm not too sure, again, if we're missing one. I think the other one's just down here underneath it, but it doesn't look too good, to be honest. So kind of moving down to the rest of the side, it does have the black window trim around it, which is a nice little touch. Gas cap right there on the side, obviously. Rear wheels are pretty much the same as the front. And this model is based off of the earlier M3, so this is kind of like the first generation of the E92. So it's got the kind of little white piece right there. On the LCI versions, which were like after 2010, so 2011 through 13, they made these all red. So I think something to note if you're not a fan of the first gen cars, which I don't know why you wouldn't be. They're pretty much the exact same as the LCIs. But yeah, keep moving on. Quad tipped exhaust tailpipes, which is standard for all BMW M models. And they did add a little grill down here, but that is kind of the same as the front, where it's just printed to look like mesh. So not too good, but the taillight details themselves are not great as well. On the real car, this white strip follows through the kind of the trunk lid, so they did mess up that detail, and you kind of see where the head or the tail lights were stuck onto the car right there, this little black piece, and then kind of this little white thing right there, which doesn't look great. So yeah, pretty poor job on the taillights themselves, but the rest of the rear actually does look pretty good. They got the BMW M3 badge, which is just a sticker on there, and then the BMW logo itself is another sticker. They also did add a little deck lip right here, as you can see, but it's kind of just molded into the body. I think on the real car, it's actually like a separate piece. Spoiler, but that's kind of nice because this won't fall off because it's molded into the model. Moving on to the rear window glass itself, it looks pretty decent, but they didn't add any of the kind of defogger lines on the rear end of it, but that's okay. The roof itself is supposed to mimic carbon fiber, but as you can see, it's kind of just printed on there with these like little circular patterns, so it's not good carbon fiber, obviously, and it doesn't follow through kind of on the corners, which is a letdown. The BMW shark fin is in gloss black, which looks pretty nice, but that's kind of the model at a distance. And I'll give you another look at that carbon fiber roof. It doesn't look very good. So now we can move on to the interior. I just realized I did forget to open up the trunk, which I believe doesn't open actually. Yeah, it does not open. So another kind of letdown. The trunk can't be opened on this model, unfortunately. But here's the interior. As I said earlier, it's finished in this really nice kind of beige leather, but it's obviously not leather, it's just plastic. No carpets on the interior of this model, it's just all plastic on the floorboards. But the door detail, it's pretty accurate to the real car. They added all the speakers on the side of it. The door handles look not great. They're kind of just a big piece of, you know, kind of silver plastic right there. But they did get all the door pockets correct, so that's kind of nice. Showing you guys the interior, kind of the dashboard. They added like this little carbon fiber as well along the trim, but it's the same as the roof, and it's kind of in this tan color, so it doesn't look very good, but honestly the details are pretty accurate to the real car. This one has the iDrive screen on it, and then you can make out all the buttons for the AC controls and the radio system down below. So moving on to the other side, I'll show you. And these doors do open up pretty wide, which is really nice, so it lets in a lot of light if you display open. We do also have the M3 badge on the side seals, which kind of hard to make out because it's all chrome, but it is there. So here's the steering wheel, and it does look fairly accurate to the real car, but they didn't add on the real car, I think there's kind of chrome surrounding the sides of it. Maybe, actually maybe not the real car. Maybe that's just like the non-M Sport cars. But anyways, you know, we have a pretty nice display on the gauge cluster itself, but you can't really make out the details. But they did add a little chrome surrounding it, as you can see. But yeah, pretty fair interior, I'd say. I think they did a pretty decent job, and I'll try to show you the rear seats as much as possible. I know it's kind of hard to see, and it's really dirty. So yeah, it's okay. I think they did a pretty decent job on the interior, but the rest of the model itself is pretty much a mid-tier model. I mean, for $50 or whatever these are going for now, I think you could probably pick one up for about maybe $45 to $60, depending on the specification, but I really wouldn't recommend this model. I would say just step up to the Kyosho version of this car. It's about double the price, but you're going to get so many more details and just a better quality model. So I'd probably give this model, it probably deserves a solid 5 out of 10, just because like the taillight features are messed up, the body gaps in the front fenders aren't great, you know, fake carbon fiber roof, which looks like garbage in my opinion. So not a great model, but if you like the E92 M3, which this is one of my favorite cars of all time, and if you're on the lower end of like, you haven't graduated to maybe buying like $100+ models yet, this is a fair start. And I think these will retain their value decently well, as I don't think any of the lower tier brands are going to be producing a E92 M3 that I've heard of anytime soon. So this would be a decent model to get if you don't want to spend more than $100, but I really recommend you do get the Kyosho version. So yeah, that's kind of my reviews and opinions on this car. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Would you get this model, or do you think it's better just to step up to the Kyosho version? But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe if you're not already, and we'll have a lot more videos posted in the future. So stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.